Hi everyone, welcome back to Short Stories Brick by Brick, session number 3 on plot. And let's see, let's just talk a minute about our rituals again. I showed you a poetry book that I've been reading before I work each day, a few poems. Where do we get our inspiration? What about our rituals that kind of get us in the frame of mind for writing? I take inspiration personally from wherever I can get it, and it comes from many sources. It could be a walk in the neighborhood, talking to a neighbor, listening to certain pieces of music. Sports, for me, soccer and basketball. Certain people who play sports really inspire me, how they go about their practice and honing their craft. Certain paintings, and yes, strangely enough, books. I turn to certain books that I love to kind of get re-inspired. Books that raise the bar, they have the bar set really high, and I come away from reading even a paragraph of them sort of rejuvenated. Two books that I'm currently dipping into as I write a novel each morning. I'm reading a paragraph or so of each. This first one, The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro, set in England. And this is a book for me that's just a masterpiece of narrative tone, and the characters are real. The settings are just vivid and wonderful. This other book that I've been looking at is another one of my favorites. It's called The English Patient by Michelangelos, who was born in Sri Lanka and lives in Toronto. This is a masterful book, and whenever I go back into it, it seems to get better with each rereading, and it's just kind of stunning how he puts this novel together, and you care about the people in it. So those are all parts of our rituals. You know, what are yours? If you really want to write, you need to find a place and a time to consistently do that and to kind of get yourself in the frame of mind, and you kind of experiment, see what works for you. Okay, so let's review where we've been. We're building this story brick by brick. The first session, I asked you to think of a character, someone you haven't seen in film or on TV. You just made up this person, and this person has been living in some corner of your mind since that first session, even if you haven't thought of him much. But you're going to be thinking of him a little bit more today. The second session, we worked on setting. I brought in some music, and you worked on using sensory details to make a certain time and place come to life for the reader with a few crisp details. All right, again, you're still going to need a piece of paper with pen or pencil, or if you want to write on a handy keyboard or phone, that's cool. So let's get going. Plot. What's going to happen in your story? What's going to be the tension or the obstacle that your main character is going to deal with? It can be a small obstacle, but that will be the thing that makes the reader kind of want to read on and find out what happens. So let's begin with a prompt. I want you to think about the character you began to make up. Take a moment to think of her or him or them. I want you to take the following 4 minutes after I say pause the video to think about the following. What does your main character love the most? Another way you can frame that is, what do they want the most? This could be a person they love. It could be a place. It could be an activity. Now, with this prompt, you can make a list or a paragraph. It's entirely up to you. Just think about what they love or what they want. What comes to mind first? Just take about 4 minutes. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay. So with that in mind, I want us to take a quick look at the first paragraph of a short story that I absolutely love. And you may have read it before. It's called Thank You Man by Langston Hughes. This very short story is sometimes anthologized in middle school collections. So maybe in 7th or 8th grade you came across it. If you have, I want to tell you, this is a story that is really good to reread as a writer, because Langston Hughes does so much in this small space. Vivid characters, settings that come to life with just a few details. And right away, there's an obstacle. there are a couple of obstacles, and you want to know what happens. So real quick, Langston Hughes lived from 1902 to 1967, and he wrote poems, short stories, plays, essays. This guy wrote a lot. He was raised partly by his grandma, and the old woman in the story that I'm going to read a paragraph of is based on her, so the story goes. All right, he lived much of his life in New York City also, where this story takes place in Harlem. Okay. Oh, pay attention to how Langston Hughes starts this story. The first sentence and the whole paragraph I'm going to read. Don't do this to your own shirt, but every time you're starting a story or a poem or an essay for that matter, you want to pull that reader in. You don't necessarily need to yank them in, but there's so many ways you can draw that reader in to that story. So, with that said, she was a large woman with a large purse that had everything in it but a hammer and nails. It had a long strap, and she carried it slung across her shoulder. It was about 11 o'clock at night, dark, and she was walking alone, when a boy ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. The strap broke with the sudden single tug the boy gave it from behind. But the boy's weight and the weight of the purse combined caused him to lose his balance. Instead of taking off full blast, as he had hoped, the boy fell on his back on the sidewalk and his legs flew up. The large woman simply turned around and kicked him right square in his blue jeans sitter. Then she reached down, picked the boy up by his shirt front, and shook him until his teeth rattled. So right away, there's this old woman who works in a hotel beauty shop. It's late, she's worked a long day, her feet are sore, she's tired. All she wants is to go home to her apartment and have a simple dinner. What's the obstacle? The kid who tries to mug her. For the kid who tries to mug her, he's this young guy who's poor. All he wants is a pair of blue suede shoes. He can think of no way else to get these shoes other than to rob this old woman. And as the story progresses, you see how he deals with this massive obstacle, which is the woman. She puts him in a headlock and drags him back to her apartment, where she ends up cooking him dinner. But there's some tension right away. So, I want to show you something. I made this drawing, and I worked on this drawing for about 3.5 hours last night, so be gentle with me. So imagine that this is your main character. And this is what she or he or they love the most or want the most, okay? Here's a simple diagram. Every TV show, film, book that you found yourself gripped by has had this element in it. There's some obstacle between a character or characters and what they want or what they love. How do they deal with that obstacle? There are many ways to deal with obstacles in life, but we're human beings who love stories of persistence, ingenuity, cleverness, sense of humor even at times. How do we deal with obstacles and not just give up? There's not much of a story there. Characters faced with an obstacle. All right, that's good. I'm out of here. Not much there. So, what are you going to do in your story? Coming back to your prompt, what does your character really care about or want, and what could get in the way? Okay. Let's see. What else do I want to show you? I have something that sits on my desk, and I want to show this to you. This is a postcard of one of Michelangelo's unfinished prisoners. Some people call them the unfinished slaves. If we lived in Italy, we would pronounce his name Michelangelo. His full name was Michelangelo Buonarroti. He lived about 500 years ago in what is now called Italy. And this guy could write poems. He was a major painter. ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, for example. But his true passion was sculpting large blocks of marble. So he would go to this quarry called Carrara in northern Italy and order these 9-foot tall, 3.5-foot wide blocks of marble, have them sent back to his studio, and he would sometimes spend days just looking at that block from different angles. And he would try to imagine as clearly as he could the figure inside that block, because he believed that it was his job as an artist to free that figure trapped in the marble. Kind of a cool way, I think, to see writing or many other forms of art. Right now, you have dozens of stories within you. If you want to write, you need to sit down and brick by brick kind of build that. Or another way, another metaphor, chisel it out, bring it out. There are no shortcuts. So the other reason I have this on my desk is when you go here to the Accademia Museum in Florence, there are 4 of these in one room, at the end of which stands one of Michelangelo's most famous finished sculptures, David. But with these unfinished prisoners, he died before he finished them. And you can see his chisel marks. And you can get fairly close, not so close that the guards tackle you, but it's incredible to see these chisel marks from 500 years ago. And you can see what he was up to in bringing these figures out. Okay, that's why that sits on my desk. All right, so now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. And in a moment, I'm going to have you pause the video and spend about 3 or 4 minutes just basically picking an obstacle for our purposes here, for your story. And we're all about practice here, right? Nothing has to be perfect. This is a first draft you're going to do. It can always be changed later. I want you to think, actually write out these 2 things. What's an obstacle or a problem that your character could face? And again, what do they love the most? Person, activity, place, or what do they want the most? Just in a sentence or 2, what's the obstacle? The second part of that is, if you have a name for your character at this point, cool, put it in there. If not, no worries. Again, like I talked about the first session, you need to choose that name carefully that fits the person that you're imagining. So main character's name deals with the problem by, and just finish that sentence. Just for your own purposes, so it's in your head, kind of what you're dealing with. And this can change later, like I said. Okay, go ahead and pause the video for a few minutes. All right. So, 2 more things for this session. I'm going to give you a quick preview to next time, and then I'm going to finish by reading one of the poems that is in this Dorian Locke's book next to me. I read it yesterday, and it has to deal with writing, and I want to pass on what's in it to you. All right, so here's our review real quick. We've done our first 3 bricks: character, setting, and today plot. Next session is who tells your story? What's the point of view going to be? And this is an important choice for a writer. It basically comes down to what feels the best, what feels most true for that piece of writing. What's the best way to tell it? And I'll help you to come up with a couple of options for that. Okay. So this poem. So among Dorian Locke's teachers was a guy named Philip Levine, and he was a guy who lived from 1928 to 2015, and from the age of about 14, he worked in auto factories in Detroit and really lived the life of a blue-collar guy. Got his education and then went on to get a higher degree in writing, and then later became a university teacher, well-published poet, and a mentor to many other poets. So Dorian Locke writes this poem in her collected book here, Only as the Day is Long, new and selected poems. It says, Mine Own Phil Levine. What he told me, I will tell you. There was a war on. It seemed we had lived through too many to name, to number. There was no arrogance about him, no vanity, only the strong backs of his words pressed against the tonnage of a page. His suggestion to me was that hard work was the order of each day. When I asked him again, he said it again, pointing it out twice. His muse, if he had one, was a window filled with a brick wall, the left-hand corner of his mind, a hand lined with grease and sweat, literal things. Before I knew him, I was unknown. I drank deeply from his knowledge, a cup he gave me again and again, filled with water, clear river water. He was never old and never grew older, though the days passed and the poems marched forth and they were his words only. No other words were needed. He advised me to wait, to hold true to my vision, to speak in my own voice, to say the things straight out. There was the whole day about him. The greatest thing, he said, was presence, to be yourself in your own time, to stand up. That poetry was precision, raw precision, truth and compassion, genius. I had hardly begun. I asked, how did you begin? He said, I began in a tree, in Lucerne, in a machine shop, in an open field. Start anywhere. He said, if you don't write, it won't get written. No tricks, no magic about it. He gave me his gold pen. He said, what's mine is yours. And with that, I'll see you next time. And until then, take care.